I never thought a single night could destroy everything I had built in 10 years of marriage.
But it did.
And the worst part is, I have no one to blame but myself. Matthew and I had been together since college. He was calm, loyal, the kind of man who never shouted even when life tested him. We had 2 beautiful kids, a nice house, and what everyone called a perfect marriage. Except it wasn't perfect, at least not for me. I don't even know when I started feeling lonely. Maybe it was after our second child was born. Matthew worked long hours, came home tired, and spent weekends fixing things around the house or watching TV. I wanted romance again, attention, affection, and when it didn't come, I convinced myself I was invisible. Then came Lucas. He was our landscaper, tall, charming, the kind of man who noticed small things. When he came to fix the garden that summer, I remember how he smiled and said, "You've got a lovely yard, but it deserves more care." It was such a harmless comment, yet it made me blush. That's how it started. Harmless talk, little smiles, texts about work that slowly turned personal. It wasn't love. It was attention. Something I had been starving for. One afternoon, when Matthew was at work and the kids were at school, Lucas stayed longer to finish the hedges. We ended up having coffee inside. One thing led to another, and before I knew it, I had crossed a line I could never uncross. It happened again, weeks later.
And again.
Each time, I told myself it was the last. Each time, I hated myself more. Then that night came. Matthew had told me he'd be gone all day, dropping the kids at his parents' place. I thought I had hours, time for a few drinks, maybe one last moment with Lucas before cutting it off for good. When Lucas arrived, I felt a strange mix of excitement and guilt. I tried not to think about my husband, but as we were together in the living room, something inside me kept whispering, "Stop, stop, stop." I didn't listen. And then, suddenly, I heard a faint sound, the kind of sound that makes your stomach drop. The back door. I froze, mid-laughter, and Lucas paused too.
"What was that?" he asked.
I brushed it off. Probably the neighbors. We continued, and then I realized something. My heart was racing too fast, my ears catching every noise. I didn't know Matthew was already inside the house, standing just behind the wall, watching everything unfold on his phone camera. When we moved upstairs, I had no idea he'd already seen everything. After Lucas left, I wrapped myself in a robe and poured wine, pretending to relax. When Matthew walked in through the garage, my heart nearly stopped. He was supposed to be gone for hours. "Why are you home so early?" I asked, trying to sound casual. He just smiled, said he wanted to surprise me. He looked at me in a way I'll never forget, calm, polite, distant. I didn't know he had just watched his entire world crumble. That night, he held me like nothing had changed.
I didn't understand why.
But deep down, I could feel something inside him had died. For the next few days, he barely spoke. He avoided me, looked lost. I thought maybe he was stressed, maybe something at work. I didn't realize he knew everything. But one evening, when I went through his phone to check something, I saw a new home camera notification. He had installed cameras. My chest tightened. I felt a panic I can't describe. I knew then that he was watching me. Not because he didn't trust me, but because he knew. That's when the guilt became unbearable. Every time he looked at me, I wanted to confess. Every time he hugged the kids, I wanted to scream. A week later, he finally did what I feared most. It was late, the kids asleep. He sat in the living room, quiet, eyes red. "Mia," he said, "I know everything." My whole body went cold. He pulled out his phone, pressed play, and there it was. That night. My betrayal. My shame. I fell on my knees, sobbing, begging him to stop. He didn't yell.
He didn't cry.
He just said one sentence I'll never forget. "You ruined every good thing in my life." I begged him to let me explain, but he walked out of the room. That night, I couldn't sleep. I sat by the window till sunrise, holding my ring, knowing it meant nothing anymore. I didn't know it then, but that was the start of my end. The morning after Matthew confronted me was the quietest morning of my life. He didn't scream. He didn't threaten. He just stopped being there. He woke up early, got the kids ready for school, and left before I could even say good morning. When he came home that evening, he didn't look at me. Not even once. The silence in our house was unbearable. It wasn't anger anymore, it was emptiness. And that's what hurt the most. I had destroyed the one person who never gave up on me. Over the next few days, I tried to apologize, again and again. I texted him at work, left notes by his coffee mug, even cooked his favorite dinner, but everything went untouched. He moved into the guest room, locked his phone, and treated me like a stranger living under the same roof. At night, I could hear him crying in silence. The sound broke me in ways I can't describe. I'd lie awake, staring at the ceiling, replaying that night in my head over and over again. The sound of my laughter, the way he must have felt watching it all. I wanted to tear that version of myself apart. Then one evening he finally spoke. Not softly, not warmly, just flatly. "I've spoken to a lawyer." My hands went cold. "Matthew, please no.
Don't do this."
He looked at me with eyes so hollow, they barely looked human. "I'm not doing this out of anger, Mia. I'm doing this because I can't love you anymore." He didn't raise his voice once. That calmness terrified me more than shouting ever could. Days turned into weeks. He stopped wearing his wedding ring. He stopped calling me Mia, just you. He told the kids that Daddy and Mommy needed some space, and they would stay at Grandma's for a while. When he dropped them off, I stood at the doorway, watching his car disappear, realizing that might be the last time we'd all be together under one roof. The loneliness felt like punishment, one that I deserved. Lucas tried calling me once after everything came out. I didn't answer. I blocked him. Whatever I thought I felt for him died the moment Matthew played that video. That call was the last time I ever heard his name. A few days later, Matthew's lawyer contacted me. Divorce papers. The moment I held them, my hands shook so badly I could barely read the words. Irreconcilable differences. No accusations, no detailed reason. Just a clean, cold statement that ended 10 years of love and memories. But he wasn't done. He wanted full custody of the kids, and I knew deep down he would win. My family urged me to fight. "Get a lawyer," my sister said. "Ask for alimony at least. You were a stay-at-home mom for years. You deserve something." But what did I really deserve? Pain? Loneliness? Punishment? Maybe all of it. Still, I did what they said. I hired a lawyer named Clara Bennett, young, ambitious, confident that she could help me rebuild. But Clara didn't understand that you can't rebuild when you've burned your own foundation. When the first hearing came, I saw Matthew for the first time in weeks. He looked sharper than ever, calm, collected, wearing a suit that somehow made him seem like a stranger. He didn't look at me once. The judge asked if we wanted to try mediation before finalizing the divorce. Matthew's reply was simple. "No, Your Honor. There's nothing left to fix." That one sentence shattered me more than anything else he'd said. When it came to finances, Clara whispered, "We can request spousal support, given your years at home." I nodded, though every part of me screamed not to. I didn't want his money. I wanted his forgiveness. But he didn't even look at me as the paperwork was filed. Matthew's lawyer, an older man with a steady voice, spoke calmly, presenting evidence, the video. I couldn't breathe as it played. Every movement, every sound, every second of my betrayal. There in that silent courtroom. The judge stopped it halfway through. Matthew didn't even flinch. He wasn't watching the screen. He was watching me. For the first time, I saw something in his eyes again. Not love, not pain, but revenge. This was his justice. His closure. That night, I broke down completely. I sat on the bathroom floor for hours, hugging my knees, crying until my throat burned. When I finally walked out, I found a note on the kitchen table. It was from Matthew.
It said,
"I'll sign the final papers next week. Please make this easy for both of us." No anger, no insults, just an instruction. It was over. Still, a small part of me believed, or maybe hoped, that once things calmed down, he'd change his mind. That he'd see how broken I was, how sorry I had become. But every text went unanswered. Every call went straight to voicemail. A few days later, I got the final notice. Court date confirmed for the divorce and custody ruling. I didn't even have the courage to show up the next morning. But Clara insisted. Mia, you have to face this. At least try for alimony. Don't walk away with nothing. I didn't care about money. But something inside me, maybe guilt, maybe self-preservation, told me to go. That day in court, I saw Matthew sitting beside his lawyer, arms crossed, face blank. The judge asked me to speak. I stood up, hands trembling, voice shaking. I betrayed my husband, I said softly. I can't take it back. I can only say I regret it every single day. The courtroom was silent. For a second, I thought I saw a flicker of sadness in Matthew's eyes, but it disappeared as quickly as it came. When the judge asked about financial support, Matthew's lawyer handed over documents, evidence that I had willingly broken the marriage through infidelity. The law was clear. My request for alimony was denied. The kids' custody went to him. It was official. I had lost everything. When we stepped outside the courthouse, I tried to say something, anything. Matthew, I whispered, please can we talk? He didn't stop walking. Don't call me again, Mia, he said, his voice calm but final. You made your choice. Now live with it. He got into his car and drove away. That was the last time I ever saw him. That night, I returned to an empty house. No laughter, no kids, no warmth. Just silence. And for the first time, I truly understood what I had done. I hadn't just cheated on my husband. I had destroyed my own life. It's been 7 months since the divorce was finalized. 7 months since I heard my children's laughter echo through this house. 7 months since I lost the man who once loved me enough to forgive anything except betrayal. The silence in this home is louder than any scream could ever be. At first, I thought I'd get used to it. I told myself I'd start over, maybe find a new job, maybe move to a smaller place, maybe fill the emptiness with something. But the truth is, you can't rebuild when your heart still lives in the ruins you created. Every corner of this house reminds me of Matthew. The hallway where he'd tickle the kids. The kitchen where he'd come behind me and kiss my neck while I cooked. The living room, the one place that holds the memory I can't erase no matter how much I want to. The night he caught me. Sometimes, I imagine what he must have felt standing there, watching the woman he trusted completely betray him. That image haunts me. I see it every time I close my eyes. After the court's verdict, I had to move out within a month. Matthew took the house, and rightfully so. I packed everything I owned into 3 suitcases and a few cardboard boxes. Most of our things, photos, furniture, toys, stayed behind. They didn't belong to me anymore. I found a small 1-bedroom apartment on the edge of town. The walls are thin, the floors creak, and the streetlights flicker at night. But what really hurts is the silence. There's no laughter here, no bedtime stories, no mommy echoing down the hallway. I get to see the kids twice a month, supervised visits only. At first, they ran to me when they saw me. Now they just smile politely, sit with me for a while, and ask when Daddy's coming to pick them up. They love him more now. Maybe they should. He deserves it. I try to stay strong in front of them, smile, talk about school, pretend I'm okay. But when they leave, I collapse on the floor and cry until I can't breathe. Lucas disappeared completely after that night. He never texted again, never showed up. Sometimes I think about him, not with longing, but with disgust. He was the spark that burned my entire life down, but I was the one who poured the gasoline. Once, about 2 months after the divorce, I saw him at a grocery store. He looked the same, confident, casual, like nothing had happened. He saw me too, but didn't even nod. I realized then that for him, I was just a mistake he'd already forgotten. It was me who had to live with the ashes. I found work at a small florist shop downtown. It doesn't pay much, but it keeps me busy. There's something strangely peaceful about arranging flowers, giving life to beauty that will wither anyway. Maybe that's why I like it. It feels like me. Sometimes customers come in, couples holding hands, husbands buying flowers for their wives. I smile, take their money, and wonder if those women know how lucky they are. I've stopped wearing my wedding ring, but my finger still bears the mark where it used to be. Pale skin surrounded by faint tan lines, like a scar that refuses to fade. A few weeks ago, I saw Matthew again for the first time since the final hearing.
It was at the park.
He was with the kids. They looked so happy, chasing each other, laughing like nothing had ever gone wrong in their world. He saw me before I could hide. For a second, our eyes met. There was no hatred in his expression, only indifference. And somehow, that hurt more than anything else ever could. He walked toward me slowly, his voice calm but distant.
You should go, Mia.
They don't need to see you cry. I wanted to say something, anything, but my throat wouldn't work. He turned away before I could speak. That was the last time I saw him. Nights are the hardest. When the world goes quiet, and all I have left are my thoughts. Sometimes I lie awake imagining alternate versions of my life. Ones where I never met Lucas, where Matthew came home that night to a smiling wife instead of a liar. In those dreams, we're happy. The kids are older, we're sitting in the backyard laughing, drinking wine, talking about growing old together. But then the dream ends, and I wake up in the dark alone. I still have the court letter on my nightstand, creased and stained from the times I've unfolded it just to remind myself it's real. It reads, "Petition for alimony dismissed." A line that defines the rest of my life. People say time heals everything. But time doesn't heal betrayal. It just makes you realize how permanent your mistakes are. Some nights, I hear my neighbor's TV through the wall. It's always some romantic movie. A man forgiving the woman who hurt him, or a family coming back together. I used to change the channel when Matthew watched things like that. Now I listen. Because those stories are the only place where forgiveness still exists. Last week, I found one of the old family photos in my storage box, the four of us at the beach. Matthew was holding our daughter. I had my arms around our son. We looked so happy. I stared at it for a long time before tearing it in half, not out of anger, but because I couldn't bear to look at the woman I used to be. I've started therapy now. The counselor says forgiveness has to come from within, that I need to forgive myself to move forward. But how do you forgive someone who ruined everything for the people she loved most? I've learned that guilt doesn't fade. It just settles, like dust, on everything you touch. Sometimes I walk past our old house. It looks the same, new flowers, repainted fence, a swing in the yard for the kids. Through the window, I can see Matthew helping them with homework. He looks at peace. I don't go closer. I just stand at the corner, smiling through tears, whispering a silent apology to the wind. He deserves peace. They all do. And me? I deserve the silence I live in. Because silence doesn't lie. It just reminds you of every word you should have never said, every moment you should have never taken. I go back to my small apartment, lock the door, and sit by the window with a cup of tea that's always gone cold. Outside, life moves on. Cars pass, people laugh. The world doesn't stop for broken hearts. Mine did. And maybe that's my punishment. To live, to remember, to regret. Not everyone gets a second chance. Some of us just get time, too much of it, to realize what love truly was only after it's gone.